Hi there, Stacie. Welcome back. We've now had the ballots sent out for the Holly Lake Ranch Board of Directors voting, which will take place on September 22nd, am I right?
Yes, the 3rd through the 22nd, and the ballots are counted on the 23rd.
So I really appreciate you just coming back and going through a list of questions that's come up again and again. For people who are new to Holly Lake Ranch and don't thoroughly understand the roles and responsibilities of admin and the board of directors and the hot issues here. So we're all excited for you and appreciate all your time and effort. Are you ready to get going?
I'm ready. Thanks for having me, Lori.
Okay, here we go. Are you familiar with the study performed by qualified residents on the erosion and drainage issues at Holly Lake Ranch? That report was completed several boards ago and offers a great deal of information. Do you have any concerns with these issues at Holly Lake Ranch and how they may affect our properties and even the lake? These are very complicated issues. How would we manage initiating a solution to cover these issues?
Well, first of all, I'm not familiar with this. If a study was done, and I don't doubt that there was, but why have I not seen it would be my first question, because it seems to me if somebody has put that much time and energy into such a study, then it's something we need to utilize. I do know that some of our roads that need to be fixed can't be fixed until the drainage and erosion issues are fixed. And I don't believe in recreating the wheel, so I think if we have such a study available, we should certainly utilize it.
Great. In regard to the tennis courts, the pickleball courts, the gym, the pools, etc., would you be willing to listen to frequent users of these areas in regards to the needs of these facilities, i.e., what improvements might enhance the facilities and additional equipment the residents might find beneficial?
Well, I'm willing to sit down and talk to anybody, and I think that the people that have the most knowledge are going to be the users of those facilities. So certainly I'll be willing to sit down and listen to what the needs are, because I know we have needs in different areas of the community with our amenities, and we need to make sure that those are taken care of.
Holly Lake Ranch allowed the buildings to fall into disrepair for many years, unfortunately. What method of approach would you use to maintain our buildings and facilities so this never happens again? And what are your thoughts on repairs and maintenance?
One of the things we have to look at when we're looking at building a budget is wants versus needs. And I realize there's some people out here, and many people out here, that would like to see new amenities and different things built, but we have to be able to take care of what we have before we can move forward. And we have to be able to do that, not only do it well, but in a way that we can maintain it going forward.
Holly Lake Ranch celebrated 50 years last year. It is our understanding the original dues were approximately $10 a month. Our current dues are $157.76 per month. Have we kept up with the cost of inflation over the years and the cost of doing business? What are your thoughts on this?
I want to say it was in 2018, the board at the time had a financial town hall, and it hadn't been very long since I'd lived here full-time as a resident, so what I actually did was went through and created a spreadsheet that did the progression of dues and assessments from inception of Holly Lake Ranch through where it was at that time. And what I found was that over the years, there were several times, the maximum you could increase dues is 10% per year. And there were several times, I don't know there were very few times that it was raised 10%, and there were a lot of years that the dues weren't raised at all. And I think that while that may have been very attractive to people who were living here at the time, it could have created a couple of problems. The first problem being that when you don't raise dues, because inflation goes up every year, or the cost of living, not inflation, but the cost of living goes up every year. So when you don't raise dues, you may not be keeping up with the cost of living. It also sets an unrealistic expectation that we can continue to operate and maintain our buildings and our amenities without ever raising dues.
Stacie, what are your top priorities for Holly Lake Ranch?
My top priorities are working with administration to look at our budget and see if there's anywhere where we can cut costs or curb costs, and make sure that we're using the best efficiencies that we have, and that we're not spending money on things that we shouldn't be spending on, or if there's ways we can gain efficiencies across all of the departments. I would say that and communication. I've said many times out here that every question deserves to be answered. I don't feel like right now, currently, our board is doing a good job of answering all the questions. I don't think there's anything nefarious going on, but we've got to figure out how we can sit down with our residents, listen to what they have to say, and provide them answers.
As current treasurer, can you describe the responsibilities of this position and how this position works with the director of finance and the finance committee?
Okay, so basically the finance director, I think his actual title is probably financial officer or something, but I work with him and the GM and the finance committee. We sit down once a month, once the financial statements are sent out, and when they're sent out, I actually have read-only access to QuickBooks, so I can go in and I kind of have an idea of what normal operating expenses are. So I look at every line on the budget, line by line, and I go through it. And if I see something that's really high or really low, I go in and try to figure out why it's high. Sometimes we have 3 pay periods a month and we didn't budget for 3 pay periods. Sometimes it's somebody didn't send us a bill, so our numbers are artificially low. So I try to make sure that there's really a good reason. Of course, our electric bills are a lot higher this year because the electricity rates have gone up. But sometimes, something might need to be coded somewhere else. So I work with the finance committee. Once I look at that, we meet once a month and we go over the finances. I'm very well known for asking a lot of questions because I want to make sure that if I'm asked by a resident that I can explain what's going on.
The maintenance department leadership is one of the most important positions on this ranch. What qualifications do you feel this position should require, and how would you go about hiring a replacement?
Okay, well, first of all, administration, our general manager actually does the hiring. We hire our general manager, but I'm not involved in the day-to-day hiring, but of course there is input that we have. I think 2 things that we really need is somebody with construction experience, somebody with heavy equipment experience, and somebody with managerial experience. You have to know how to manage employees, to set expectations, to make sure those expectations are being met.
Our dam is a major concern for all of Holly Lake Ranch and has been for quite some time. At this point, we do not know what should or would be required to make necessary repairs. It was recently stated TCEQ would not be here, but the engineers hired by Holly Lake Ranch would be here in October. Do you feel under these circumstances it would be in Holly Lake's best interest to get a second opinion upon receiving their recommendations?
I think that depends on what they tell us. If they come back and they tell us the exact same thing, they have the exact same recommendations that TCEQ has, then we already have our answer. I mean, we would have had 2 opinions that say the same thing. If their opinion comes back and it's totally different than what TCEQ says, then I would certainly think that we might want to look at a second opinion, or I would say a third opinion at that point.
Would you be in favor of hiring a contract employee to search for local, state, and federal grants that might benefit Holly Lake Ranch? Example, our private airport is used for care flight and emergency use. Are there available funds to help with our lake issue?
I think before I would hire an employee to do this, because our administrative cost is something that's always under the microscope, I would see if some of our current employees could do research on what grants are available, or there may be volunteers out there that may know something and can tell us. Now, when it comes to actually filing the grant, filling it out, I know there's professional grant writers out there, and grants are very specific with the information they need, so it might be worth hiring somebody to apply for those grants, but actually doing the research might be something we can do in-house before we hire an additional employee.
Lack of transparency is one of the biggest complaints residents express. How can the board of directors create a friendlier and more trusting environment among the residents? Are you willing to work to create a more open line of communication? Please explain how you would go about opening those lines of communication.
I've said in every meet greet I've had and conversation I've had with residents that every question deserves an answer. I think that right now we have reached a point where we have a lot of unhappiness with residents because they don't feel like they're being listened to. So what can I do to fix that? First of all, my door is always open. People know that. If you run into me in Brookshire's, ask me a question. You know, if I'm right in the middle of shopping for hatch peppers, then I'm gonna buy those peppers. But then we can set up a time to talk. Another thing we could do is we could, at board meetings, we had a town hall recently where all the board members were sitting on the floor with everybody else as opposed to up on the stage. That gives the perception that we're a little bit more receptive, I think. So that's something to look at. I recently learned that there was a weekly coffee social that takes place, I think, every Tuesday morning at 8:30, and this is something I never knew about. So maybe if I got out and I met with people and we set up meetings with people that are not the official meetings, but just kind of listening to people and hearing their concerns, where we can talk to them and show them that we are, I'm a real person that lives at Holly Lake Ranch and I love this place and that's why I'm here.
Do you think Holly Lake Ranch should implement campaign rules in order to promote fairness and transparency? Will you share your thoughts about your campaign experience?
This has been a very stressful time in my life. I do think that there's probably some improvements, some rules that can be put in place. When I campaigned, I've campaigned for HOA boards before, and it was really a matter of getting out and talking to people. What this has turned into me has been kind of a high dollar item that is, I have to look at my budget and what can I afford, and I look at the Holly Lake Ranch budget like I do my own budget, and I think maybe some limits need to be set into place. When I had my hot dog cookout, I'm going to be transparent. The people that sponsored it for me bought the hot dogs. This was not a matter of me getting out there and trying to buy votes. I've had people offer to pay me for signs, and my signs aren't for sale. I bought them. That was a campaign expense. I think sometimes people want to donate to campaigns, and that's a great thing. I've been very careful not to accept any donations at all that were not from somebody that I felt would have done it, if no matter what I was doing, because I don't want it to appear that I'm trying to buy votes. Because when I say integrity matters, it really does, and I don't want anybody to have the perception that I'm trying to do that. And I've seen some things on social media that have implied that maybe that was the case, but I can honestly say that it's not.
Taking a look at the short-term rental fees. If you own a home and the STR is your second home, you are only paying half dues. In some cases, the STR fees and the HLR dues paid do not even cover standard home dues. Are you willing to review this policy and possibly reevaluate the fee structure?
I certainly think it does need to be looked at. First of all, we recently made a change in the rules and regulations where that anybody with a long-term rental pays, basically what it says, if you own a house and you have a long-term rental, that they used to pay half dues. Well, now they pay full dues. And I think that this is something that should be done for short-term rentals as well, because the fee that they're paying is not meant to be a penalty for owning a short-term rental. It's to cover the additional administrative costs. And for instance, if you, the fee for a rental that has 6 people or less is $600, I believe. And so you're paying half dues plus that $600. So you've got a house sitting out there that's not paying full dues on it. And I think we need to find something that is equitable to all homeowners, no matter what kind of home it is.
Do you feel there is a need to have all the STRs provide septic system evaluations showing they can accommodate the number of occupancies allowed? Do you consider this more important on lake properties? Should STR owners be required to have the septic systems checked annually?
Oh, that was more than one question. Septic systems. So I found out a lot about septic systems when we had an issue with ours recently, and I thought it was based on square footage, but what it's actually based on, how often, how big your tank has to be is based on the number of residents. And I think with short-term rentals, you may have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home that a normal family or a regular family might have 3 or 4 people living in, but in a short-term rental, because of the number of beds and what they can require, they might have 6, 8, 10 people in there. So that's going to put additional stress on those septic tanks. It's my understanding, and I know it's rumor at this point, that there have been some issues with septic tanks at short-term rentals that are closer to the lake. And if that's going to cause a problem, I think they might need to be monitored a little more closely, because anything that affects our lake affects all of us. I don't know if annual inspection is the answer. I don't know, but certainly some kind of I don't want to say policing, some kind of inspection requirements or should be in place for short-term rentals.
Do you support increasing the number of short-term rentals that are currently allowed?
I honestly think that 30 is a good number right now. We seem to be at a sweet spot, if you will. We've got 30 short-term rentals. We don't want to discourage short-term rentals because they do actually have a need in our community. I rented several of them before I moved out here full-time, but we also don't want this to become a rental community. We want it to be a family community. So I would say leave it where it is.
Do you support holding violators accountable for breaking the STR rules? And how would you recommend following through with this process?
I think violators that break any rules need to be held accountable. I think that there's 2 levels of accountability here, because from what I understand, some of the violations that people have been bringing up are advertising violations. For instance, you can't, if you're a short-term renter, you can't use our gym facilities. You can use the lakes, of course. We can't keep you away from those, but our fitness center is not available to our renters. And so if someone's advertising that is available, then we need, our administration needs to be policing those ads, or I don't want to say policing, but looking at those ads and making sure people are being compliant. If you're talking about noise disturbances, parking things, I think that needs to be handled by our public safety department. If there's a violation that's occurred, by calling our public safety department, there's going to be a record of what's going on, and if it's a repeat violation, there'll be records of that as well.
Do you feel a Holly Lake Ranch board member that owns an STR should recuse himself from voting on any and all policy, etc., in regard to STRs?
I think that any board member who has a conflict of interest, whether it's a real conflict of interest or a perceived conflict of interest, should recuse themselves from a vote, because really, in the minds of most people, what they perception is reality.
There's a lot of confusion about security versus Wood County Sheriff's Department and who to call and when. How can this be clarified to residents? How can we make sure residents know what the duties of our security office are?
Okay, I think we need to have a town hall or a forum or an informal meeting, if you will, where maybe we have the security department or the board or our management or somebody, because what I know is our sheriff's department or TCOL licensed police officers, and they go through a certain amount of training and everything. Our security department, our public safety department, is a Class B security department under the state of Texas. We have level 2 and level 3 security officers, and they get their certification from it's called TOPS system through the Department of Public Safety, I believe. And so the training that they have and the expectations they have, what they can do versus what they can't do, differs so much from what a TCOL licensed police officer can do. And I think that education and just clearing up misconceptions would go a really long way on making our community have better expectations set and know what they can do and what they cannot do.
One last question, Stacie. What would you like to say to voters that you have not yet had the opportunity to say?
I think the most important thing when I talk to people, and anybody that has spoken to me can vouch for this, is I'm a very honest, open, trustworthy person. I think when I say integrity matters, that's written on the bottom of my sign, and it really does. And that, I'm here to represent not just a certain group of people. I'm here to represent the entirety of Holly Lake Ranch. We all live in different sections. We have different interests. We have different backgrounds. And I think it's important we listen to all of those people. And my door is always open. I'm always willing to talk. Can't promise you I'll change anything, but I can promise you I'll listen and do the best I can to ensure that the needs of the community are met.
Thank you, Stacie. Thank you for your service to our board, and thank you for your hard work in campaigning as well. Best of luck to you.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.